We got ourselves more Aninews cut content for solo leveling. This is Jinmu versus the Ant King, how it really went.
If every episode got the same treatment that this one did, then Perfect wouldn't even begin to describe this adaptation. I'm not just talking about the stellar animation which brought this fight to life, but also the pacing, tone, and even anime original changes which built upon it.
It was great to me.
We know the Ant King has a skill which allows him to obtain the powers of those he eats, yet in the manhwa and novel he doesn't even use them. He has 5+ S ranks in his stomach, yet for some reason doesn't make use of any of their abilities.
Cause he dumb.
So to see the Ant King use these ice powers here in the anime, well, that's a change I very much welcome.
Oh, that was anime only?
The Ant King is constantly evolving in a way that perfectly suits him.
Okay.
This then allowed them to make the fight a lot more even, which in comparison to the novel and manhwa, was, as you'd expect, a one-sided beatdown.
Again, very smart for the anime to make it seem close. Give that illusion of difficulty so that the fight actually kind of makes it worthwhile rather than just one weighted stomp. Sometimes there are moments where that's good too. I do like a one-sided just absolute demonstration of power. That's kind of how like the Tusk fight was for me.
So it's here the episode sees its biggest changes, since a large majority of the fight was given through the perspective of others. It's an interesting way to portray what's usually Sung thinking about how strong he's grown. So, if you want to see how this climactic fight differed between all three mediums, stick around as we'll go through all of it.
Yes, sir. But first, Starforge PC ad.
But first, if you've ever wanted to have Rimuru job and build a city just like Tempest...
No. I do not want a fucking job. Kidding me, bro? Who the hell is gonna spend the free time that they have to fucking work a job? Ain't no way, bro.
Now you can, as Rimuru with today's sponsor, Isekai Slow Life.
Okay.
That time I reincarnated as a slime meets that.
This is an idol Tensura. Oh my god, what the fuck? Oh, it's Tensura collab. I see. These idol games, I'm not that big of a fan of idol games. There's time and their place. Idle games are honestly kind of chill too. I remember playing AFK Arena or some shit like that for a while. AFK Journey, that shit used to go really hard. But Tensura collab! Go use Aninews' code if you want to. Look at that shit, bro. 2,500 free summons? Oh my god!
The link down in the description. But anyway, episode 24, Are You the King of the Humans?
Yes.
Covering chapters 101 to 104 from the manhwa and chapters 118 to 121 from the web novel. Let's start things off over at the TV station where, unlike how in the anime the feed disconnected due to a connection issue, the broadcast was actually cut off by the director himself. As
in the anime, they made the broadcast of the director so much of a content fiend. He's like, I don't care if people dying, bro. Put that shit online. And the source material, he was less of a savage.
As damaging as it was to his TV station, it was too much to show the country their strongest hunters getting destroyed by a single ant. He refused to broadcast Ma's torture, then Min's subsequent death.
Come on, bro! That shit will go crazy for the views. It would make us look really bad, though.
This was when he believed everything was over, up until someone would report someone else had appeared on scene.
That's fair.
The director believed the only person who could save him was Jesus, but what he saw on screen was probably close enough.
I said it.
No one could tell who it was.
Was that AI art filter edit? Kind of looks like it. Kind of feels like Ghibli style art filter I've been seeing all over Twitter recently.
Jesus, but what he saw on screen was probably close enough. No one could tell who it was or what they were capable of, but the presence of someone so apparently confident was enough for the director to make a gamble on him. There was a chance this person may not have been a hunter at all, but now the director was determined to see this broadcast through. It's then the story would rewind to a bit before Sung's arrival, where an emotional perspective was given from the cameraman.
Let's go, cameraman.
Despite being backed into a corner, he had zero regrets knowing this was his equivalent of going out in a fiery blaze of glory.
Yo, this is his Valhalla, bro. This is his moment of glory. He's just made the resolve to die. And he's like, you know what? Till the bitter fucking end, I'm gonna make sure that people get the content.
He didn't consider himself a true hero like the S-ranks who fought in front of him, but he was intent knowing he could at least support them.
Nah, he is the true hero. It's like a, what's it called, Moomin Rider situation. The weakest person in the group who is, you know, showing more bravery than the strongest.
So, where before his life was nothing but menial jobs intended to slowly grow his career, Now he was faced with an opportunity he'd never thought he'd get to be a part of. His position as a hunter, though one he wasn't very fond of, had allowed him to capture something no other cameraman on Earth has. He had shown the world his own.
This is the cameraman monarch, bro. The camera monarch, the S-rank camera power scaling.
Country's hunters successfully defeating the boss of an S-rank gate. So, knowing he was the person who captured such footage, well, deep down he was incredibly proud since everyone would get to see the valiant sacrifice of the hunters who fought for them.
That's right.
To him, his life's work as both a cameraman and hunter.
Okay, they gotta stop showing this scene because this is so fucking sus, bro. He looks like he's giving the fucking gawk right now every time he's bobbing his head back and forth without seeing his mouth. What the hell is this, bro?
Was coming to fruition. If there was one thing he did feel regretful over, though, it was the devastating thought of never being able to see his father again.
Oh.
You see, as the person
Lore?
who took care of him after his mother died of cancer,
Ooh.
knowing he'd never get to say goodbye really hurt. What went to hurt even.
He should have taken the helmet off. Took the helmet off, put the camera to him and said, "Dad, I love you," and then put the camera back on. Yo, if he did that, I'd be like, fair, totally valid.
Even more was that his last words were so mundane that the cameraman couldn't help but wish they could have talked for at least a little bit longer. Just as life always seemed to be, though, time was ruthless and regret always arrived one step too late. So, with zero energy left to activate any of his tank skills, the cameraman would apologize to his dad, then accept whatever fate was about to come to him. What happened next was an incomprehensible sequence of events, since in one moment he was being saved by this shadowy figure, then the next a person he'd never seen before was
Igris.
forcing him to drink something.
It's
Seconds
Shinwoo.
later, he was fully healed, and that's when the cameraman would finally realize this could be the person he thought it was. It was a truly perplexing turn of events I'm sure would shock anyone. Now, the reason Sung didn't show up sooner was because the broadcast he was watching was delayed. By the time he realized it was 10 minutes behind, the damage to Korea's S-ranks had already been done. Luckily for him, he was able to save the weakest person present first. Sung's action
Mr.
after
Ma.
would be the most important, since with the other S-ranks still in a dire situation, he needed a way to clear the ants without injuring those they were attacking. The easiest way would have been to just use Tusk, but there was no guarantee such an attack wouldn't hit the others too. So that's when he decided to go with Iron, using his taunt skill to divert the ants' focus pretty much immediately.
Let's go, Iron.
Sung would praise Iron for a job well done, then summon the rest of his soldiers to eliminate.
Yo, I'm sure that meant a lot to Iron, because Iron is so eager to try to appease his lord.
A job
Look at him acting nonchalant right now. I bet he's blushing, bro. He's hiding the blush right now, though.
well done, then summon the rest of his soldiers to eliminate as many ants as possible. So, given that Beck now had an opening, he would move his teammates to the safest corner he could find, then finally take in what exactly was happening. Ma, who'd had his eyes injured in the fight before, could only ask to know what it was Beck was seeing. It was a question to which Beck would answer everything was okay now, since for him that's exactly what he was feeling. That reassurance was actually more for himself though, since it was only moments ago Beck fully believed he was going to die. He had even subconsciously called out for help the moment Sung made his entrance.
Fair.
So, to see Sung easily handle these ants that gave them so much trouble, well, that provided Beck with a huge sense of relief.
It's my hero.
His hope of survival was now fully rekindled. As far as he was concerned, the aid of Sung was far more reliable than the power of over 20 Japanese S-rank hunters combined.
Exactly. It doesn't matter if it's 200 or if it's 2,000, right? At a certain level, you can't just add more volume, right? And expect things to change. These may as well all be ants. You can't fight an elephant with an army of ants. You need another elephant. Jinmu is that example.
S-rank hunters combined. He knew all he needed to do now was just sit back and watch. Beck would then tell the cameraman to keep the camera pointed at Sung because as someone who'd glimpsed his power so many times before, Beck knew the country would want to witness the amazing show he was about to put on.
Get the money shot.
After hearing all about Sung through the experiences of others, Beck sat eagerly anticipating a power he'd finally get to witness himself for once. So, though the job of Beck and the other S-ranks were done now, the job of the cameraman was far from finished. It was by the time he
It's just beginning. And cameraman, bro, how the fuck did it keep up with the speed? Everything that we saw through the episode, it's just funny to imagine that the cameraman was like running that fast and keeping up with them.
Realized what he needed to do though, that Sung would have cleared almost half the ants already. He had killed so many he actually lost count, and it was so easy that he found himself completely unbothered by them. Compared to the enemies of the Demon Castle, these ants were quite literally just that.
Ants.
That's when Sung would decide to clear the ants out faster, leading him to resurrect the dead ones without a care for who was watching.
What? That was a bit different in the anime. The anime, he was like, oh, I can't do this.
Unlike how the anime didn't even show it, Sung wasted no time creating more soldiers for his shadow army. He didn't even bother to hide it either, so everyone across the world bore witness to his shadow extraction ability.
Oh shit.
None could actually understand what it was, but this ability was definitely no longer a secret now. So, the cameraman was the first to be overwhelmed by the shock of it, since shadowy ants pulling themselves from the ground was far beyond his own personal scope of
Ant
comprehension.
aura!
Beck was a little more calm himself, but with this being his first time witnessing Sung's summons as well, he was more so in a state of awe. Now, it didn't take long for the shadows to outnumber the living, so with Sung's army of darkness pushing back their counterpart,
These ant designs are so cool, man. How did they make ants just look so sick? I wish this happened in the anime, unfortunate. But I wonder who else is watching. Are the national level hunters watching? Because like, if he showed this in the source material, and even just the fight itself, like, the entire world must realize like who Sung Jin-woo is now. It's kind of like a target on the back of his head if you think about it.
all those watching gained a little hope again. It was a stark contrast from the bleak despair they felt only moments ago. Since the last thing they saw was the Ant King dismantling their hunters, what the viewers were experiencing was quite literally a roller coaster of emotions. Like, victory seemed assured when the Queen was defeated, then defeat seemed imminent after the Ant King came.
Just peak content.
Despair took over when reports confirmed Min's death, then everyone was in a frenzy wanting to know what happened after. They couldn't bear not knowing what happened to the other hunters. It was once the feed was restored and victory appeared in sight again that Sung's one-sided massacre would bring forth all sorts of emotion. Most were ecstatic by the sudden turn of events, while those who lost loved ones shed tears knowing revenge was near for them.
It's just
None
hype.
knew who this mysterious hunter on their screen was, but what they did know was that they wanted to cheer for him. It was excitement that only escalated when they found out he was a Korean too. For the TV director who'd been stressed for some time now, finally he could breathe a sigh of relief since it was looking like his gamble paid off. Min's death made it feel like the world was coming to an end, but the arrival of Sung showed him the light at the end of the tunnel.
Dude, this is some scripted shit, man. It's so perfect. It's so cinematic. They made this shit so roller coaster to give no hope, to have absolute despair, and then the hero shows up at the very end. Yo, who wrote the script here? Obviously the author.
It was the greatest feeling to know things might work out okay. The remaining hunters just needed to make it to extraction. For the Japan team who withdrew already,
She
any
survived.
agreement made with them was now null and void. Any loot would no longer be shared, and if Korea wanted, they definitely had a right to demand reparations themselves. Things certainly weren't going the way Japan expected. Matsumoto had thought he planned for every possible situation, yet somehow a single monster had managed to get the best of him.
Bro put all his eggs into Goto, and that was it. It was GG. I don't blame him because that's the best soldier he had. And then he had the audacity to be like upset and complain that Goto wasn't enough. I thought that maybe he'd feel like sorry or sympathetic, but he's like, nah.
So, Shock couldn't even begin to describe what he was feeling right now. To make matters worse, his team couldn't even track where that monster was anymore. The same satellite they'd used to monitor the energy levels of the Queen now couldn't find a monster that was significantly more powerful. So the whole thing just didn't make sense to them. They were able to spot it back when it fought Goto, but the large bright light which indicated its powerful presence before was now nowhere to be seen. Not a single speck of light indicated that level of power anywhere. At first, such an anomaly was utterly incomprehensible, up until Matsumoto realized what was really happening. You see, as soon as he thought about it a little bit longer, that's when he understood how this monster was hiding itself. It had perfect control over its magical energy, and as a result could turn it on and off whenever it wanted.
It's just suppressing it?
This
Okay.
was why the research team failed to spot it before the raid, and it's the reason why Goto ended up being defeated by it. Japan had assumed their satellite data was all they needed, so never once did they consider the possibility of anything beyond that. It didn't occur to them that the ants would evolve in a way that could deceive them.
Yo, these ants are
This
sneaky.
was what Matsumoto would consider the perfect failure, and as a result, this single oversight would cost them dearly. It was a steep price he fully expected to get worse, since to him it was only a matter of time before this monster crossed the ocean and reached the mainland. And with no hunter capable of standing against it, well, let's just say the potential calamity was terrifying.
I love how their plans got reversed entirely though. Because from the beginning, they were trying to wipe out Korea, but it's pretty much like Japan got wiped out, and Jinmu saved the day. And we're not going to just show up and say, hey, you owe us anything. I doubt that Korea's going to press those kind of things. It would make them look pretty villainous, but it is refreshing to know that in the source material, all the evil deeds that they had, it got like completely reversed.
Against it, well, let's just say the potential calamity was terrifying. It was then that Matsumoto...
Damn, I just realized something. That's fucked up. I know that everyone here is pretty much dead already, right? I see it. Arm gone here, head gone, head gone. This guy though, palm tree. Damn, that sucks. These dudes all got like, I guess, killed by the ants, but this one person just got crushed by a palm tree. Damn, that sucks.
It was then that Matsumoto's team would relocate the monster back in the Queen's chamber, indicating it was no longer suppressing its magical energy like how it was before. This made Matsumoto assume it was fighting the Korean team, which, if all went well, would take them out too.
Yeah, he was wishing on the downfall of this too, right? He's like, nah, Jeju raid, it must end with Korea going down. I don't care if this is the last hope right now.
It was a potential silver lining he thought he could get his hopes behind, up until a separate spot of light indicated another strong presence.
Jinmu!
At first glance, this light seemed to be as big as the monsters, but on closer examination it actually looked bigger. Not only that, but this second light was also surrounded by hundreds of smaller ones.
It's like aura
Some
tracker.
shadows were so individually strong that each could be viewed as their own powerful presence by Japan's satellite.
Let's go.
It was an oddly beautiful phenomenon none of Japan's researchers had ever seen before. Matsumoto would then demand to watch the Korean broadcast himself, unveiling the live-action version of what the satellite was showing him.
The fuck? He wasn't watching the stream? Why? Because he a hater, that's why.
The part of it that made their observations all the more terrifying was the fact the massive source of light was confirmed to be coming from one single person.
Jinmu.
No one could believe this lone hunter was capable of producing all that. Chairman Go's reaction was exactly as
So
we saw,
peak.
but if you're wondering why he wasn't in the mission control room from the get-go, it's because his weak heart wouldn't have been able to handle it.
Old man, frail old man. Man, I'm kind of getting worried. Is this foreshadowing of his health collapsing in the future seasons? I'm getting worried for this guy, man. He's getting too dokied up.
I mean, we saw how excited he got just from seeing Sung, and even that was enough to give him a heart attack. So, whether the mission ended in success or failure, just being part of it was too much of a risk for him.
Dude, there's a doctor standing by here. There's a straight up a doctor standing by. It's not even manager mood. Sir, your heart, it can't take anymore. I think Gogan, he makes a lot of sense to die in the future seasons. He's one of those characters, again, like a mentor-like figure to die and pass on the will, right? Maybe to Jinmu. It just feels like he's getting set up that way.
His personal doctor next to him in the manhwa. Seeing Sung extract the shadows of the dead wasn't good for him either, since that too got his heart racing a mile a minute. It did also show that Sung had hid the truth from him, but that didn't matter considering what he was doing now. At this
I don't think the elixir of life can heal his heart, because the elixir is supposed to heal like ailments from the system and shit like that, right? I forget the exact distinction, but I don't think it would make sense.
At this point, the chairman was only curious about why Sung didn't want to join the fight before. He could see just how excited Sung was to be there, so for a man who proclaimed to only want to fight monsters, the chairman couldn't understand why he walked away from the opportunity to fight the strongest. It was a thought Mr. Go really hoped to get an answer to. Back home, the reaction was different too, since before exchanging, he wasn't...
One of the funniest scenes, bro. this TV wobbling back and forth with Jenna smacking it was unironically one of the best moments of last episode. That's a peak sister leveling content coming up too.
Action was different too, since before exchanging, he wasn't chilling on a rooftop like Batman, but was actually at home watching the raid with his mother.
Yeah, in the anime, bro was just completely aura farming on top of a building. Just trying to look so sick.
This tracks more with why he wasn't at the raid in the first place, since it shows he really was spending more time with his family.
Yeah, there's no need for him to go, right? There's no need for him to go because there's no need for him to, crave more power because his character arc is done with saving mom. That's how it all started, but, had to step up though.
In any case, it was the moment things went bad on television that Sung would leave the room and make the switch. It seems he stopped the TV from working too, since he likely didn't want his mother to see he was a hunter yet.
What? What? Huh? Did he have a shadow around here to fuck up the TV? Did he take out the power cords? What?
Unlike how Sung's mom already knows in the anime, in the manhwa and novel, he's still keeping it a secret from her.
Okay.
He didn't want to burden her with the same feelings their dad did.
I guess it's not that big of a deal anymore, because in the anime she knows.
Now, switching back to the raid, since saving Cha was the #1 priority, that meant getting everyone out was the most important. It was before they could that's when the Ant King would appear, once again depressing every viewer who was watching. Since the last time they saw it, it was demolishing their hunters. Now they were worried the same thing was about to happen again. After eliminating
They make these two watching the stream so epic with the art here, man. God damn, it's like if they're in the middle of the raid themselves.
After eliminating Cha in one hit only, no one really thought a ranged mage type would do any better. So Beck would be the first to offer assistance, but some would insist no one step up at all.
They would get in the way. They're liabilities. You guys sit tight, okay?
Reason being that to him the fight would be way faster if they didn't.
Yep.
It was a suggestion not many of the others could fully get behind, but decided.
That's so sad again. These are S ranks. These are Korea's best S ranks. And they're all just been power crept so hard.
To respect anyway due to the power Sung exhibited back when fighting the Swarm.
But I feel like power creeping isn't necessarily a bad thing, especially for a show like Solo Leveling, where it's all about the progression and flexing, right? The aura farm. Because they got power crept, you can feel that, oh my god, our boy is even greater than the S ranks that we were glazing before, so it's honestly just intended.
Swarm. This was actually why Beck thought Sung needed help to begin with, since with all the summons he used to clear the swarm, Beck figured he'd be running low on mana now. He was worried that Sung may run out of magical energy mid-fight or something. This was a concern that only went to confuse Sung, since maintaining his soldiers always cost him nothing. If you remember from one of my last videos, the only time Sung used mana was when he needed to regenerate his soldiers.
That's right.
So his magical energy was rarely, if ever, a problem for him. This, however, wasn't knowledge anyone was privy to, and Sung wasn't planning to share it with them now either.
Trademark secret.
No, he instead simply stated how his summons didn't require as much magic energy as they thought. It was a statement that went to shock everyone equally, since what other weak point would Sung have if not for an unsustainable mana cost?
He has no weak points. What weak point does he have? What's his biggest weakness? Lack of mana, honestly? To keep up the summons if they die? That's it. The craziest thing again is how he specced into strength and all that stuff and became like a melee, ranged, a melee like an assassin and rogue like, a hunter in season 1. And then he became Necromancer and I was like, yo, the one thing Necromancer is usually bad at is like the 1v1 melee combat if they close the distance and there's no mobs left to protect them. But Jinmu can cover that too, so it's just like the full stack.
Sung wasn't gonna reveal any more than that though, so that was a question all would have to sit on. Now, Sung had immediately recognized the Ant King, and the Ant King immediately recognized him. Both were extremely powerful and
yeah, this is way better. The webtoon version of this art, see how like the blue isn't completely just making Jinmu look like a smurf? Like I did not like that comparison at all. The Ant King, I don't know, but like both of them, it was just overshadowed by the color. It was too much saturation. This is just the perfect amount, but I guess it's kind of harder to kind of like again, it's like You can't just like overlay this into the anime and expect to get the same results because of different mediums.
Entities, but the Ant King's observations of such was spoken the exact same way that Goto once did. This brings us now to their fate.
Yeah, this, right? It's like, well, what's going on, bro? Why he looking like a Smurf right over here? The Ant King, honestly, I don't mind because he just has like an exoskeleton, you know, and like an eye. The Ant King honestly looks alright, but the blue here, I don't know about that.
Face-off where Sung's close proximity to the Ant King would lead viewers to think the outcome was already decided. I mean, here was this monster who just ragdolled Korea's sturdiest tank, and here was Sung casually walking into melee distance of him. The Ant King would see this as an opportunity to end the fight in one hit only, leading to the punch which would shock the world.
Blow for blow.
You see, as soon as everyone saw this mage tank a hit
tanked
with his
it.
face, every person watching was fully captivated.
What is this chibi ass face? It's so cute.
When the Ant King then got blown away by the return punch, several moments were
Jenna.
taken for viewers to process what they just saw, then it's when they finally
These reactions,
cheering
though.
could be heard everywhere. The Ant King fully expected to at least send this new opponent flying, but when it neither died nor even budged, Sung barely gave it a moment to feel surprised.
Neck leveling, bro. Look how sturdy it looks here. He got that Mike Tyson neck. Tanked the punch, didn't do anything.
No, he instead immediately responded with punches of his own. They were hits whose impacts were strong enough to literally shake the entire tunnel.
I love it when Aninews does this. The added-on effect of the manhole panel shaking.
Shake the entire tunnel.
Nice editing.
The cameraman was struggling to understand the power he was witnessing, since after seeing this ant destroy 6 S ranks like they were nothing, he never thought he'd see a display of force stronger than that.
And again, just goes to show how insane Jinwoo is. The power scaling, it's not even close anymore.
Like, he was leagues behind the S ranks above him, then they were easily gapped by the Ant King earlier.
Yup.
So, for Sung to come in and stomp the ant like that, well, the notion someone could be so powerful was just absurd to
There's
him.
levels to this, man.
Now, when Sung saw his return punch did less damage than expected, he fully resolved himself to brute force this victory. If all he needed to do was bypass some armor, then that's exactly what he was going to do. The ensuing clash was a back and forth spar of hits so powerful that the reverberations of energy was enough to make those in proximity sick. The cameraman was the most susceptible, so he was even experiencing a bit of vertigo.
Yeah.
Still, he maintained his composure and even smiled, since who wouldn't when what he was broadcasting was their country's shining ray of hope?
Let's go, camera monarch. Stand proud. That camera, bro, you gotta keep that shit still.
For the Ant King, who was on the receiving end of this beatdown, though its exoskeleton was likely more durable than any metal on the planet, Sung was still punching his way through it easily. The Ant King knew cracks were forming all around it, but he couldn't tell how bad it was due to a lack of pain receptors there. This in turn forced him to divert his attention to check it out, revealing the cracks had spread all across his entire body. Sung wasn't so naive as to miss out on this opportunity, since the moment he saw the Ant King was distracted, that's when he would hit him square in the face. It was a vicious impact that made clear beating Sung in a battle of strength wasn't possible. Luckily, the Ant King knew it had other attacks, leading to the paralysis poison skill it developed through gluttony.
You don't know.
That went exactly as we saw, ending in another ferocious punch that for the first time actually dealt damage. The impact from this one finally made the Ant King feel pain for once. That's when Sung would clue into the Ant King's emotions, which was an ability he first picked up back when he fought the High Orcs. He didn't think much about it then though, because there he thought he was simply reading their facial expressions and gestures.
Okay.
Now that he was reading a monster that had no facial expressions, that's when he started to think perhaps perception unlocked some sort of new ability.
You can like feel their intimidation from within intuitively.
So, Sung would go on to use this in more ways than one, since sensing its fluctuating emotions now allowed him to track its presence easier. Where the Ant King's speed usually enabled him to lose his opponents quickly, Sung could track him even if he lost sight of him. He could also read his emotions in a way that allowed him to know what it was planning. So, when the Ant King's anxiety changed to happiness, that's when Sung knew its strategy had changed again. Now, the reason the Ant King didn't engage with speed to begin with is because it essentially wanted to show off its kingly powers first. Now that that wasn't working though, the Ant King knew this was no longer the time to flex. Little did he know about
Oh shit, my bad. It's time to lock in. Bro stopped, you know, just going like our time. And then sat forward and he's like, okay, my bad. Okay, I'll get serious.
Full of speed was where Sung felt most confident, so despite the ant being significantly faster than it was before, keeping up with it was no more difficult than when the fight had first started. This forced the Ant King to fight on the defensive again, resulting in a constant retreat backwards that Sung took full advantage of. With every step back it took, Sung would get more confident knowing full well the type of mental shock it was going through. He could feel exactly how shaken up this ant was. Then, it was in classic Sung Jinwoo fashion that he would first compliment both himself and how powerful he'd become, right before committing to a series of attacks which would finish the fight.
Oh yes, I'm so strong. I can feel the leveling. I truly am solo leveling.
The ant's exoskeleton was all but shattered now, so Sung could go in with Critical Strike to finish it off. So it was after landing Critical Strike dozens of times over that's when the skill would upgrade itself to Mutilate. His Stomp of the Ant was what enabled this skill to evolve mid-fight.
Interesting, because in the anime, right, Mutilate just like popped up when we almost could have died with the claw, you know, going into the eye. And then Mutilate, boom, and then we're like, hype, got bailed out.
It was the damage from Mutilate which would cause the Ant King's survival instincts to kick in, leading it to fly away much like how we saw in the anime. What the ant saw behind it, though, was the absurd sight of a human flying too. This wasn't Sung's insane speed propelling him through the air, but rather his ruler's touch skill elevating him to the same level the Ant King was. The Ant King with his ruler's touch skill. This wasn't Sung's insane speed propelling him through the air, but rather his ruler's touch skill elevating him to the same level the Ant King was.
What? So he's like pulling with ruler's hand to move that faster, is what's going on. Okay.
The Ant King would then resort to the only move it thought it had left, only to be shown it didn't even have numbers on Sung. Any advantages he thought it had was always immediately disproven with authority.
I love this scene just to kind of remind us that, hey, we got an army, man. Like, Ant King, you think you have an ant army? It's like okay, we got our shadows just like on bay waiting the entire time.
Sung's shadows would then make light work of the Ant King's army, including Tusk, who Sung felt the need to give an extra warning to. Since his
He's nerfed. He's like, don't go too crazy. We can't kill people in here.
Attacks were especially dangerous. Sung basically said if any of them hit the humans, then he would never summon Tusk again.
Banned?
Now,
I wish we got to see Tusk's face after that, bro. Because I know Iron will be making such a face of shame and, you know, discontent. Like, oh, my liege, I'm sorry for offending you.
Now, all the Ant King could feel at the end of this was a pure sense of terror unlike any he'd ever felt before. For the first time in its life, it knew fear.
Oh, this is a great frame. Even though you don't really see the, you know, facial reactions of like a human being, the eyes here, the utter shock is conveyed very well through the art.
It also sensed what it could only describe as an insurmountable obstacle, since no matter how hard it tried, it knew it could never beat Sung. So, in these final moments before its execution, all the ant felt was complete and utter defeat.
It would have been kind of cool to see the Ant King evolve as the fight was going on. You know what I mean? Like, there's like a fight in One Punch Man versus Garo where Garo continuously evolves and tries to match like the caped Baldy. I know the Ant King doesn't operate in the same way. He needs to like eat people and use his gluttony to become stronger and stuff like that, but would have been kind of cool.
It felt absolutely inferior knowing it couldn't fulfill its sole purpose for existing. The Queen made it to deal with the strong humans, yet when the strongest appeared, it couldn't do anything.
Oh man, could you try to deal with the human? But is Jinwoo human? You know how we constantly say like Jinwoo is like a different category of being because he's not recognized by the system, you know? He is and he isn't. He's not recognized in the same group as like regular humans. When we fought Baraka, we knew about that. Anyways.
Purpose for existing. The Queen made it to deal with the strong humans, yet when the strongest appeared, it couldn't do anything. This was the existential thought the Ant King dealt with, while all Sung was focused on was the potential soldier he was about to gain.
We're not even thinking about the same shit, bro. He's like, oh boy, Arise is gonna be sick. I wonder what I'm gonna make this guy do. And bro's like, come on, I'm the Ant King. I can't go down like this.
To deal the inferior knowing it couldn't fulfill its sole purpose for existing.
Damn.
The queen made it
The
to deal with
disrespect.
the strong humans, yet when the strongest appeared, it couldn't do anything.
Absolute
This was
disrespect.
the existential thought the Ant King dealt with, while all Sung was focused on was the potential soldier he was about to gain. So, in order to ensure that process went smoothly, Sung first needed to make sure this ant was dead. He would finish the job all while commenting how now the Ant King was looking like a proper insect. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this episode.
Okay.
This was truly an experience, and I'm glad that I get to share part of it with you.
Yeah, not much to really say regarding, cut content like this where we're just kind of describing the fight rather than like hidden lore and extra stuff that we're missing out on, right? So nothing really much to say other than it was one-sided in the manhwa versus the anime, and I think the anime did a better decision to go that way. There was some interesting stuff, I guess, with like the cameraman. The cameraman lore, honestly, the more I hear about it, it's so funny. Gogan, I think he's gonna die. Next season, like, I'm worried about this guy. Hopefully I'm wrong. And that's pretty much it. This is all the cut content that we have so far, and then we'll be watching the actual finale tonight on stream, and then I'm sure Aninews will have some interesting cut content for the finale, because I'm expecting the finale to be like a world building setup for the future seasons, introducing new cast of characters and so on. Please go check out Aninews' channel. Here's a link to the video. Go give it a like. Sub to his channel if you haven't. See you next time.